want to hear about the Sunset Strip? Go to my website, jizzypearl.net, all you new subscribers, and check it out. I've written a bunch of books and they totally rock. Get them at jizzypearl.net. All right, we'll start. Here we are, Jizzo Chats with my good buddy, my amigo,
Hombre,
Johnny
buddy.
My QR drummer, but he's also been in a plethora of bands. He was in Typo Negative. He is in Danzig. He is in Kill Devil Hill. He was in Silvertune.
No, I'm still in Silvertune.
You're like the master of disaster. You're like Apollo Creed. You've got 20 names.
That's what,
Monte Fisto. Patriarchs in Black, right?
Yes.
Am I missing any? Am I missing any?
No, I think that's it. I think
That's just today.
Hookers and Blow.
Oh, and Hookers and Blow, obviously.
Yes.
Your biggest achievement.
Yes, that is the feather in my cap.
The hat and feather. All right, before we start, I just have to know if you got your coffee.
Yes, of course. Silly.
For you. We have to have our coffee on the road for sure.
Yes. I have to have coffee constantly.
Yes. Well, because you're a busy guy.
I went to while I was out yesterday running around. I went to Starbucks. They were out of iced coffee.
Wow.
And I was like, I asked them, I was like, are you just out of iced coffee right now? Or is it, she was like, we don't have iced coffee for the day. Our truck didn't come. They didn't get their delivery of iced coffee.
Tanker?
I guess, yeah. I didn't know that it was a thing like that, but I was pretty surprised. I was pretty shocked.
So let's talk.
Let's chat.
Let's have a chat.
Yeah.
I want to know about Typo Negative. I watched a bunch of videos. I was introduced to your band from Tracy Guns.
Right. Yeah, you told me that.
Played me the Bloody Kisses record, and I'd never heard anything like it. You guys really didn't sound like anyone else in a world of sameness.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
At the time, it was it was like a blessing and a curse, because it was cool to be doing something different, which is the thing that I like before I joined the band. That's what I was most blown away by, because it had it had the elements of it had a lot of pop sensibility, yet being so like crushingly heavy at the same time.
Well, it was sensible songwriting, the arrangements and stuff like that. It was sensible, and yet you guys were tuned down to B.
Yeah,
and so it had
really
that
heavy.
Inherent. How long did you know those guys before you joined the band?
Shit, I knew them. I mean, I was in high school when I met Kenny.
Okay.
And I knew the guys from like the 80s, and the drummer Sal, I knew him, I think I met him when I was maybe 15, 16 years old. We all come from the same neighborhood.
Right.
So we could all walk to each other's houses from where we lived and stuff. And so I played in a band with Kenny for a few years before Typo formed. And then when he joined Typo, then I got to know Peter and Josh a little bit better. Josh.
And Peter was in a band before Typo.
Yes, he was in a band called Carnivore.
Right.
Which was kind of like a doomy, hardcore band. And Kenny and I used to go see them all the time years before Typo started. I remember having their Carnivore demos.
So that's kind of how you obviously got into the band, because you knew those guys, you were friends with those guys, and their drummer, the original guy, quit.
Yeah,
and you stepped in.
Yeah, that's it. They were having I remember when Sal left, and I remember calling the guys and saying, hey, if you're going to keep the band going, whatever, because nobody really knew what was going to happen. The band wasn't, it was basically, a new band, and there wasn't any, there weren't any big plans or anything. So when Sal left,
was it before you guys broke big?
Oh yeah, this was at least a year. Like the band had been around for a couple of years, released the record, then Bloody Kisses came out, and then it didn't really pick up, didn't really start getting noticed until like a year after it was released. Then, as it went on, then like another year later after that, then, it started.
That's the problem with being different. I mean, my band Love Hate suffered from the same predicament. Everyone digs the fact that you're different, but the problem is you're not accessible,
right,
to the radio, and to, you know what I mean?
That was like the hardest thing for us, was to get us on the radio, to get on MTV. Like we would do, at one point, like, we were playing a lot. We were opening up for some bigger bands. Like, we were going out with Motley Crue. We were going out with Danzig and Pantera, Nine Inch Nails. So we were getting these, like, these cool tours. And, it was still wasn't really like, we still weren't getting that access to like those bigger things, like, like radio and stuff. And then finally,
you went out with Karabi Motley Crue.
That is correct. Yes.
I remember, because I was touring in my Love Hate band at the time, and I was hearing obviously all sorts of different stories about, the struggles that they were having filling up the big arenas. Yeah,
it was bad. But for us, I mean, for Type O.
Oh yeah, dude.
It was great. This is like we. At first, I thought it was a joke when our manager told us that we were going to go out with Motley Crue. It's like, why would you put us out with Motley Crue? It's apples and oranges, and
because Motley Crue dug you guys,
yes,
and wanted to bring you out because they were trying to shake off the hair metal thing.
Yeah.
And I think obviously your band was going to give them some credibility.
Maybe. From what I understand was like when they were working on that record, they discovered Bloody Kisses, and then when they were touring, they were like, we want them to come out with us, and against everyone's advice, they still took us out.
Right. How long were you out with those guys for?
It was like a summer.
Okay.
Yeah.
Couple months.
Yeah. And, like I said, for us, it was great, but for them, it really wasn't a good tour at all.
When did you go ahead? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
They, in hindsight, like they should have done it. It would have been better for them had they done it differently, and especially like, thinking, come
They
out
should've
after
Dr.
Yes. Yeah. They should have
like
condensed
theaters.
it.
Yeah.
Tried it out first and then build it back up, because it really was a totally different band. In my opinion, it was a better band. But like their fans weren't ready to fully
better musically,
embrace that. Yes.
Obviously. Yeah. I mean, John can sing for sure, and they were trying to do something, you know what I mean? And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. When you replace a singer, it's
tough. There's only a few bands that have been able to do it successfully. And you pretty much, you can count them on one hand where it's worked out.
So you guys, when you guys finally, when it kind of broke for you, tell me some of the tours that you went on. I mean, you kind of went on the Endless tour, right, for a few years?
Yeah, well, it would always seem like, because in the beginning, we still had day jobs and stuff. And so we'd go to work, and then we'd be able to get some time off work, go out on tour, and come back home, and then go back to work. And then it just got to a point where it was like, we would come home and we would think, all right, that's it, and then we get another call, you're going back out. And you come home, and it always seemed.
Wasn't Peter a garbage guy?
He worked for the Parks Department for the city, and he had accumulated so much, because Peter loved working for the Parks Department, so he never took a vacation, never took a sick day, so he just accumulated all this paid leave. So we would go on the road. We were all like broke and starving. He's collecting a paycheck, and. But so we would do that, and then it just kept on. don't want to say snowballing, but it was kind of like that. It just kept on, like you come home and you think, all right, that's it. And then it's like, well, don't unpack just yet. You're going back out. You're going,
Well, at some point, it was you were able to support yourself.
Yes. I mean, we were able, after the record was, the record got certified gold. We were able to renegotiate our record contract and got a different merch deal and stuff. And so we were able to do some of that. So we had a little bit of money in the bank, and it was, at least you knew your bills were going to get paid on the next tour that we were going to go out on.
Yeah, it's not easy to support yourself with music. It just isn't. Everyone kind of talks shit about it, but there's very few people that can do it.
For us, it was hard then, and now it's even harder because that revenue stream is gone. Like right. People are they're just not really buying records anymore. And
so you went out with Ozzy, right?
Yes, twice. We did.
Twice.
We did
you go
once.
On Fest, or was it you guys and Ozzy?
The first time we went out with them, it was Ozzy, Typo Negative, and Sepultura.
Okay.
And then later, like the next summer, we did Ozfest.
So did you get the fucked up Ozzy, or did you get the sober Ozzy?
We didn't really see Ozzy too much, like you'd see him once in a while, like see him like riding his bike, or he walked into our dressing room one day by mistake. Okay. And his guy came in to try to Ozzy, wrong dressing room, and he just walked in. He had like his robe on, and he just walked in, just sat down, and just started talking. And he was like telling us about
when you first see him, because I mean he's such an iconic character.
Right. Yeah.
I had always wanted to tour with Ozzy and Black Sabbath because of the stories, because of those legendary tales, and I just thought, I mean, who better to party with than the Prince of Darkness?
I don't think I could ever hang out with that guy if he's in his partying mode. His stories are legendary.
I got sober Ozzy, and it was lame.
He was pretty sober. I think he was sober when he was with us. I never really saw him hanging out.
Right.
He would be around. Yeah.
Yeah. Probably by that time he's probably in his. They put him in a box.
Yeah. He was like that in
box.
Yeah.
But I saw him, and it was just weird to me. It was disappointing. You know what I mean? Because I was young and I was just ready to.
You're ready to snort ants with Ozzy.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. And I didn't. I ended up drinking with Zach, which ended up,
that back then that could be
problematic.
A little bit.
Yeah. Well, we had a couple of little things, legendary things, but
his drinking was legendary too. When I toured with Black Label, I had sober Zach, which was great. Yeah.
The guy that I had 20 beers, Zach.
I did not.
He'd come on our bus and he would just down about 5 or 6 Kingfishers or whatever the beer du jour of the day was, and then he would go, because it was a dry backstage and we weren't allowed to drink, even though we sort of did. But yeah,
figure it out.
To our bus, fortify himself, you know what I mean? And but it was a great band. It was Randy Castillo and Mike Inez.
It was when Mike Inez was playing in the band too.
Yeah, that was great.
That was a good lineup. Yeah.
Who was in your Ozzy band?
We had Rob Trujillo.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Mike Borden playing drums.
Right, the Faith No More guy.
Yes, and Joe Holmes.
Okay.
Who's a really nice guy. He was a great guitar player, and I feel bad, as far as the history of Ozzy and his band members and stuff. He gets talked about very little, and he was a really good guitar player. But there were no crazy stories about him or anything like that. He was just a really good guitar player, nice guy. He went up there, did a great job.
I want to hear the crazy stories.
That's why you don't hear about Joe Holmes.
Yeah. He kept his craziness behind closed doors. What about Pantera? You toured with those guys too.
Yeah, that was an insane asylum.
What
with
year was that?
wheels. 95.
Okay.
Like they were on Far Beyond Driven.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
for them, that was the record that came out, debuted, like it, went to number one, and it was like they like at the peak of their popularity and their
Yeah, their
success. Like,
prowess.
like they were able to move that, like, take Pantera into arenas on that one. Before that, they were playing, like theaters and stuff, their ascension. And, at the time, like, Type O was at the peak of their popularity too. So the
Hmm.
both bands were like, at the top of their game. And then the shows are pretty wild. The after shows, it's amazing that I remember any of it.
Well, those guys were prodigious drinkers.
It was, yeah,
Prodigious.
it was not sport. It wasn't sport. It wasn't like social drinking. It was just like
It
it was
was
just part of
antisocial.
it. Yeah. But
Well,
they
you
were.
guys
They
kept,
really
but you guys
were.
kept up, correct? You kept up.
You try to hang, like, like Kenny could hang, and
Hmm.
Peter could hang out. Peter hung out with like Philip most of the time, and I couldn't keep up with them. I
Yeah.
tried. I mean, I tried. I tried every night, but
You're talking hard liquor. I
they're
mean, you're talking.
professionals. Yeah, that was probably the most fun I've ever had on a tour. It really
How
was.
long was that tour?
That tour was like 3 months.
Wow. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And like, the cool thing about it was like, like we all remained friends throughout the years,
Hmm.
which was really cool. And
Well,
like,
they were
even
really. I mean, Dimebag and those guys were just really down to earth
yeah,
Texans.
yeah,
They were just straight up nice guys. I mean,
nice guys.
they
Uh,
were.
they were, yeah, genuine,
Dimebag
like
especially.
there wasn't any, there wasn't anything, pretentious about them or anything, it's like,
And they were
if it,
just
you
monsters. I mean, I made the mistake. We opened for them once, my band, and they just murdered us. I mean, they just, how could you not? I played with Skid Row and them and us, and I was right opening up for them. And the Skid
yeah.
Row guys were backstage playing their songs.
They were really onto themselves, like, like there was really nothing like it. And at the time too, they were kind of, carrying the torch for, heavier music and stuff. And
They were unreal. They were, I
yeah,
mean, Phil Anselmo was unreal. He was
yeah,
unreal.
the whole band, they really were amazing players. And like the thing too, like they were partiers. They partied as hard as they played.
Uh-huh.
And you'd see them, every night, like the guys would, at the end of the night, everybody's a mess. And then the next day you'd see them come into the venue and, with the glasses on and the hats, and they're like all beat up. And then, like an hour and a half before showtime, you'd hear the music start in their dressing room, and they just pick it up and just, right back, right where they left off the night before. And
Well,
like,
you become a machine when you're touring like
yeah,
that, as you
yeah.
know, your band not only gets really, really good, but you, after a week or two, you can jump higher, you last longer. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? You do,
But they
because your
like
body adjusts like an athlete.
it was amazing. The thing I was so impressed with was like, how hungover they would be. And then come showtime, like their performance, like in their playing, and they never missed a note. But it was like incredible how they could be like, so beat up. I guess you could do that, like, when you're in your 20s, and
Oh
but they would,
yeah.
and they would just come out, and it was just like at this level that there wasn't another band around them that could touch it at the time.
I always look back. I mean, my own, when I was a kid touring and stuff like that. I mean, we pushed the envelope every night. We drank hard every night. We partied
Yeah.
like Vikings every night. And I come away with it going, I'm so happy that I was able to, in that a period of time, have that nuttiness, because now
Yeah.
I can step away and I regret nothing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
As opposed to people that never got the chance to, run into town and pillage and murder.
Calling it, like calling it Vikings is a really good description of it.
Totally.
And but now it's like, now, I don't have the want to do that anymore.
Well, because you did it.
Yeah.
I mean,
And
and plus, obviously, we're all older, and
it was very strange, like when I first started playing with Quiet Riot.
uh,
And we were going back to the hotel from a show or whatever. It's like, all right, we're going back to the hotel, and I get undressed, and I'm in, I'm in bed in the hotel, and I open up my iPad, and it's 11:30. And I was like, it's 11:30.
sometimes
And I
it's
was like,
10:30.
I know, and I'm like, wow. I was like, this is really different. Usually it's like 11:30, you're just getting started. Like, you're coming off stage, and now it's like, now the night will begin.
But the way that we travel, obviously,
Oh yeah, it's you
impossible.
can't.
I mean, we're blessed that we are able to do it, and we've been extremely busy this year. Next week,
Yeah.
actually have 12 days off,
Yeah,
which is
it's pretty weird. I'm like trying to make plans what I can do with all that time.
I know, because we've been at it. And
Yeah.
obviously people know that we got Rudy Sarzo back in the
Yeah.
band. And there's been a lot of light on like the resurgence, and everyone's kind of talking us up and stuff like that,
Yeah.
which means that we have to kick ass, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Even
Yes.
more. And which we do, you know what I mean? We're doing great.
You can't phone it in.
Yeah, you just had a re-release of one of your typo records. Talk about that.
Dead Again is coming out in November.
Okay.
It's a weird, like, this is a strange story with this record. This record came out in 2007. It was the last record we did, and then before we could do anything else, like work on our new record, Peter had passed away unexpectedly, and moving on, like the record came out through SPV. It was the only record that we didn't do with Roadrunner out of the band's career. We did that one with SPV. And shortly after the record came out, after the record was released, like SPV went into, they call it insolvency, which is, I guess, like the equivalent here in the States is like bankruptcy. But when in Germany, if I understand this correctly, when you go into insolvency, the government steps in and reorganizes your business.
Mm-hmm.
So they, I guess they were, whatever, selling titles to other people, whatever, trying to recoup some money, monies from other things. Our record had disappeared for years. We didn't even know who owned it.
Wow.
And we were trying to locate who owned the rights to the record. And then
because you guys are still people. You're still typo negative. I mean, you.
Yeah, we'll always be. We'll always be.
And Peter's estate, the family.
Yeah.
You guys are still.
It's still technically a business. Yes. Yeah. And so out of nowhere, and we have a manager too. Mark Abramson handles everything for us. And get a text message from Mark out of nowhere, out of the blue. We got the record back. I still don't know who owned it until we got it back, but we got it back, and we are re-releasing it through Nuclear Blast in November. Okay. But the record had, because we didn't have any rights to the record, or the record, it really, for lack of a better term, it disappeared. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't on any streaming services or anything like that. The only way that you could hear the record is fans uploading it to YouTube.
Right.
And it'd been like that for years. So it was cool to be able to get the record back, like where it was one record in our catalog. We went from like not knowing where it was to the one record that we actually owned outright. It was ours. And the rest of the catalog isn't like that. We don't own the rest of the catalog.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's
probably never will.
Yeah, we don't own our records either. I mean,
right. So this was such a shocking like turn of events where it was like it didn't exist. So now we owned it. Mm-hmm. And
So it's coming out in November.
so it's coming out in November. We're doing vinyl reissues, vinyl releases, colored vinyl. There's some stuff with the Revolver magazine, the special edition stuff. I think there's even a cassette. We're coming out with a cassette.
That's funny.
Which would be cool. Like when I first joined Typo, some of the records were on tapes.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah, when my first record came out, they were just then making the transition from vinyl, cassette to CD.
Right, yeah. And like cassettes hung in there for a little bit because I remember seeing like October Rust, that was like 96. Mm-hmm. I think maybe the record after that, I may have seen a cassette, or at least like, cassettes were still being serviced to like radio and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Do you have all your kind of old stuff, all your old Typo?
I have a lot of it. I don't think
swag.
I have everything, but I gave all the shirts. I gave everything away before Peter died. I found like boxes of the stuff in my attic at my apartment. And I was like, what am I doing with all this stuff? And this was the band was still active, and I was just like, I was giving it to my friends. I was like, here, give this to your kids, like, let your kid wear this to school. And, I just gave everything away. And I never really kept on to any of like the merch items and stuff.
Did you guys ever consider carrying on?
No, not really. It was, like somebody like Peter, like his character, his presence, his delivery, the way that he played bass was unlike anybody else. I mean, aside from like the uniqueness that was in his voice and like and his look and stuff like that, his bass playing really is what stood out to me the most. Mm-hmm. Because he really was a fantastic bass player, amazing. And I would put him up there with the McCartneys and let me fix that.
Intruder alert.
Yeah. I would put him up there with the, McCartneys and the Geezer Butlers and stuff like that. He really was that good. And, it was an honor to be able to play with somebody that was that talented.
Well, he was definitely, he was one of a kind for sure. I mean, it's just,
the character, I mean, besides like, the personality and stuff like that, Peter the musician he really was an incredible person, an incredible musician, so musical in every sense of the word. And even in his worst, like, like when he was like in really bad shape with the booze and the drugs and stuff like that, he still had this great ability to write a song. And it would just like, just.
There's guys out there that are, you know what I mean? I'm not going to name them, but there are guys out there that have that gift.
Yeah, he was just one of those people.
Well, he was, he was definitely an imposing presence. I don't know. I'm just saying that obviously at the time you guys were probably just going, what do we do? You know what I mean? How do we?
Well, yeah, I mean, there was a lot of times where it was like, it was,
But you carried on with Kenny in another band.
Yeah, well, we started with another band at first because, like things, the timelines, between records were getting really long and we weren't really doing anything. There was a lot of like, a lot of free time. So we just started working on other music that wasn't like Typo. It was just something different, more blues rock based stuff. And we just wanted to do something different, do something to be active until Typo.
The thing about Typo is that, and you told me this, that you guys were tuned down to B. Yeah. And anyone that plays guitar knows that the top string is E. So you were down several steps down to B, because when I listen to your songs and I listen to you guys play live, it's got this low heaviness that's just it's just part of your music.
Yeah, you get that. You get when you start going into that B, you start getting into the brown note. It's just tuned. Everything, all the instruments were tuned to B instead of 440.
So the bass was tuned to B.
Yes, and the guitars. Yeah.
I mean, what kind of strings can go down the B without being floppy?
Bridge cables.
Nice.
Yeah, they were, like there wasn't like like the instruments, like they would have to be, the guitars and the basses would have to be set up, in
Sure.
order to, for that low tuning, but the gear wasn't anything out of the ordinary. Peter loved peavy stuff.
Right.
And but it didn't matter what Peter would play through. It sounded like Peter. Peter was like one of those guys like Eddie Van Halen. Like
And he had
you
a
could,
chorus on his bass.
right. He had chorus
that.
and distortion and
Uh-huh.
a graphic EQ. Then he moved away from amplifiers and he was doing power amps and preamps. But it was the same, the stomp boxes, and it was
Right.
him. It was in his fingers. It wasn't the gear, because anybody else could play his equipment, and it would just be feedback and noise.
Right. Oh, okay.
He picked it up. It became an instrument.
Yeah, you guys were definitely low tuned, but it didn't bottom out. It had roundness.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, like, like the others, like a lot of the songs, they would be written, say, like in a E or A or something like that. But then when you go to the, you wanted that heaviness, then you had the B available to you to like, get really low.
Was Josh also kind of doing
Josh,
stuff?
Josh had to, Josh was the only one that was tricky. He had to transpose his keyboards in order to be,
Right.
to be
In the key of
B.
doom.
Yes.
Like I said, I mean, the difference between you guys and all the other low tuned bands is you were still musical. You still, it was buoyant. You know what I mean? It wasn't dirgy.
No, it was there was a lot of it. It was like a mixture of like Black Sabbath and like Devo and Duran Duran and
definitely
stuff.
Definitely.
The roots of it were like Sabbath and the Beatles, and then there would be like these other influences that came in, and Peter was a product of that. He was, he loved like that 80s like pop music, like just science. He loved that song. He loved it.
So how about give me a couple of cool Kenny
like
stories.
What? Kenny was always like, he was like
because you've told me a bunch of crazy stories, but obviously
he was always kind of maniacal. Like he's one of my best friends, and he's like, my best friend. We've been through a lot of shit together over the years, highs, lows. But he was always like, there was always like this state of like chaos around him. Like, it was like this ball of energy that would just.
I'm going to tell the Peter
which one?
Breakup story.
Oh, okay. All right. There's that
Jerry
one. Yeah.
brought that up at the last gig that we played. Yeah. He goes, the best breakup story ever was because Peter lived in Brooklyn still, right?
Yes. Yeah. He lived in Brooklyn.
And his girlfriend lived in Salt Lake City.
Yes.
And he made his girlfriend drive from Salt Lake City to Brooklyn.
Yeah.
Show up at the front door. And Peter opened up the window and goes, I just wanted to be able to tell you this in person. We're through. We're breaking up.
Yeah. I mean, it's awful, but it's a great story.
But it's awesome.
It was, it is. And he was like, I need you to come. I need to see you right away. Driving home. What is it?
I know.
What is it?
Yeah. And then she's just, wow. That was a good one.
Yes.
Okay. Well, let's talk a little bit about Danzig, because I didn't know that you were in the band for almost 20 years.
Yeah, this year, November 2002 was when I did my first tour with them, and it's now it's 2022. It doesn't seem like 20 years.
How did that come about? Just through friends or referral or something?
Oddly enough, I had seen that Joey C had just announced that he was leaving Danzig, joined Queens of the Stone Age.
Okay.
And they had a bunch of Danzig had a bunch of dates coming up in Europe. Just a couple of weeks, but they had dates and it was pretty close. And there was some people that worked for Danzig that used to work for Type O. And so I tried reaching out to them to see if he needed, if he wanted me to, fill in, do the dates. And while I was trying to reach out to them, his people were trying to get in touch with me. I had been recommended.
Okay.
And they were trying to get in touch with me. And I was like, like when the phone rang, I was like, oh, did you speak to so-and-so? He's like, no, I just heard, I got your number from this guy. And I was like, oh. So I went out there and basically auditioned and stuff. And then they decided that they wanted to use a guy that was local in California.
Uh-huh.
And so there was 2 shows in California and Arizona, something like that. There were 2 shows local, in the States, and then they were going to Europe. And after the 2 shows in the States, that drummer didn't work out. And then they called me up and I went to Europe with them. And, it was fun. It was with Todd Youth and Howie Pyro were in the band.
Okay.
That was the lineup.
Did you ever do records with them?
Yeah, I didn't do a record with Howie. The Red Death Sabbath record that I did with Glenn, Todd played on a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And then Tommy Victor.
Okay.
I think Tommy Victor ultimately did all the guitars, but I remember tracking some of the stuff.
Right.
I was actually in California in between 2 California shows with Type O, and we went to the recording studio. And Todd was working on the record then.
You were doing Danzig while you were still in Type O.
Yeah, for years it actually worked out. It was like the year Type O was busy, Danzig wasn't doing anything. Okay. And then when Danzig got busy, Type O was on a break. So it kind of balanced out. And thankfully, my schedule was always pretty much able to work out. There was only a couple of times throughout the 20 years where I was stuck, where I couldn't do anything, where I couldn't go out with Glenn and they had to get somebody else.
So Glenn Danzig.
Yeah. Glenn,
What should people know about Glenn Danzig?
I love not dispelling rumors and myths. Mm-hmm. I always oh, that's what you heard? Oh, yeah, that's cool.
His reputation is a lot of, who he is. His aura.
It's a lot of it is a lot of hearsay and, third party stuff, and things like that. But I love seeing some of the stuff that's on the internet about him, because a lot of it's, not true, but it's funny how these things gain momentum.
Sure.
Glenn's always been really cool to me. We've always gotten along really well. Obviously I've been playing with him for 20 years.
If you guys didn't get along, it would
it wouldn't have lasted 20 years. I'm probably tied with Tommy somewhere for the longest tenured member Glenn's ever worked with.
Mm-hmm. So Tommy Victor, he was in Prong, right?
Yeah. Yes.
And that's another New York band.
Yes. Yeah. Prong, I remember seeing Prong play with Type O years ago, before the bands were, signed. I think I saw Prong and Type O in Staten Island or something, a club in Staten Island. And Tommy's part of that. Tommy used to be the sound guy at CBGB's.
Wow.
Yeah, and he was part of that.
CBGB's is kind of like that. Everyone has this huge legendary thing about CBGB's, but it actually was kind of a dump.
I only had the opportunity. I've only played there once in my life, and that was enough for me.
The bathrooms.
It was cool to see it. It had history.
Yeah, it has history, but when you actually go in there, it's tiny.
It's a dump.
And it
was a dive bar. Yeah.
It's unhygienic.
And then they started charging uptown prices for their drinks, and I was like, "That's I'm good. That's enough."
Yeah, when I lived in New York for one summer, we went to that with Scrap Bar days.
Yeah,
Limelight at the church, and
the Limelight was the best.
Yeah, I talk a little bit about it in one of my other podcasts and stuff. It was just a moment in time that was just for rock. It was just so awesome.
It was a good time. There was the Limelight, you had the Cat Club, you had Scrap Bar.
Scrap Bar,
I'm
Bond
trying
Street.
to
Remember Bond Street?
Bond Street, the Bond Street Cafe. I played there
Yeah,
many
Webster
times.
Hall.
Yeah, Webster Hall, right? Then there was the Ritz, which was at like Studio 54.
Uh-huh.
But the Ritz, like, moved around. It was like the Ritz
But the
somewhere else.
Limelight
Yeah.
was really
That was the
exceptional.
place. Yeah. That was the place. That was the place. It sounded great. It looked great. Like the bands always were like, it seemed like every time you went to see a band play there, it seemed like they were just like a little bit of extra spark.
Because it was cool with that stained glass background. It was just
Yeah. It was really
killer.
cool. We had Typo played there, and our tech came up with this idea on the spot. He put up a big white backdrop, and then he had two girls going at it with each other for the whole show. And
Nice.
it had their silhouettes on the white backdrop. Good times.
Yeah, it was you were before
I had no idea what was going on behind me, but I heard
before you
all
were a
about it
dirty old
afterward.
man. You were a dirty old man.
Yeah.
So I mean, you're still affiliated with Danzig, obviously. And
Yeah.
you're friends with those guys and da. But because QR, I mean, we're working so much,
Yeah.
obviously, you can't turn down the work.
No, and as far as moving ahead, like Glenn's work schedule has changed drastically over the years. He's not touring like he used to, and he's more focused. Like the last couple of years, he's been, aside from doing like the Misfits reunion shows, which are, he'll do maybe it seems like they're doing a few of them a year now. And then he's been working a lot on his movies.
Right.
He released a movie last year, and last time I spoke to him, he was like working on like a number of scripts. So I guess that's kind of like where his head is at. He has a show coming up in a couple of weeks at the Aftershock Festival in California, and that's all that's on his calendar for the rest of the year.
Right.
And we had some stuff before the pandemic shut everything down. We had a European trip planned and a U.S. run planned for the fall. And they got canceled, and they never really got rescheduled. The Europe thing just completely went away, and they did the U.S. run in May of this year, which I wasn't able to do because of the commitments with Quiet Riot and stuff. And but that's it. That's really, there really hasn't been much on his schedule.
So Kill Devil Hill, you're still doing that, and you're still doing the Patriarchs in Black.
Yeah, Kill Devil Hill, we recorded the record now. Right, next month is October. I did the drum tracks like 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm. You just did a video.
We did a video, and that inspired me to go buy a motorcycle.
Of course.
Yeah. And we did the video, and we've done 2 videos for the upcoming record, and I guess they'll correspond with when we release the singles and whatnot. And but Mark, the guitar player, he had to take Zavon. He had surgery on his wrist. He had to get a procedure done, and then it took time for him to recuperate to be able to get back to playing. I believe the record is done. I just don't have a release date. I think they're talking about maybe first quarter next year.
Okay.
But the record's cool. We got to work with Chris Collier, producer, and that was fun. It was a great experience to I love working with different people, as you could tell with all the bands that I'm in and stuff. And I try to.
Yeah, I've been in a few bands myself.
Yeah. It's true. And
good.
But I like to get the learning experience, to get the opportunity to work with different people, and I look at it as a chance for me to improve what I do.
Well, speaking of which, you actually built a studio. Why don't you show up?
Yeah. I'm in it right now. I'm building my he shed, the beat laboratory.
A he
Yeah. I'm in this room here in Dallas, which is where I do my I do my work here.
Well,
And
and you're getting to a situation to where you're going to be available for recording
yeah,
and,
yeah.
and you're going to be able to do it in-house, basically.
Right. That was the goal. Like during the pandemic, I wanted to learn, more about recording drums and like, trying to get good drum tracks. For years I've been doing stuff like, doing MIDI stuff.
Mm.
And then I wanted to take the plunge into recording live drums. And I've been having a lot of fun with it. And I really I'm digging like the sounds I'm getting and
Well,
like, trying different things and
it's a process. It's a
yeah.
process. You will, once you get your room tuned, you will have
Yeah.
the what you want, and then you don't have to change it,
Right. Yeah. You
and
just
you'll be able to just get on the kit.
like in here now, for the most part, I could just walk in, just plug my laptop in and get right to work.
Mm-hmm.
But then there's always like, little tweaks and stuff and learning how to, like, I'm constantly calling up friends and, trying to get, hey, what about this? How do you do this? How do you,
Well, you have
but
to.
it's been cool. And I wanted to learn something different, like, during the pandemic while we were sitting home for 2 years, not really doing anything. I wanted to, learn something else and, to be able to still like, be creative and,
Well, and it's always good, and I say this in my podcast. It's always good for the individual to take more control
yeah,
of his music. And so it's just, you know what I mean? You can do drums and you can fly them over to Europe, or
yeah,
or they can fly music to you, and it's just it makes you a more well-rounded musician. And
yeah. I wanted to learn how to do it because there's been a couple of times where there've been like, like drum mixes and stuff that I was just like, what the hell?
right.
Like, like completely off the mark of what I was trying to get, this and that. And I wanted to try to minimize that where it was like, where I could have what I hear in my head
Mhm.
to try to like, get that across to somebody.
Like if there was a Bill Ward button.
Right. Yeah. Yes, exactly.
There probably is
Yeah,
somewhere.
there's got to be a button for the sounds and stuff, but
Well,
it
just
was
a
like,
Bill
but
Ward. I want Bill Ward. I want Bill
right,
Ward.
yeah.
A little bit of Vinny Appice, a little bit of, you know what I
That's
mean?
how. That's how recording with Glenn. That's how we would work. He would like he would show me like whatever. This is the riff. This is what we're doing. And he would give me either play like Bill Ward,
Mhm.
play like Bonham, or do AC/DC. Those are the three. Be like,
Well,
all right,
if you're
here,
a
like,
good musician, I do the same thing with the drummer I use. It's
yeah,
the same exact thing. I go play it like,
yeah,
Pat Travers, play it
yeah,
like,
yeah.
and if he's got the same musical background, okay, got it.
Yeah, they understand that language.
Yeah, yeah.
And but yeah, so anyway, like like with stuff like that, it's been fun and frustrating, like to learn how all this works.
Yeah, but see, you're
Yeah.
doing it, and no one's going to see the hours of
Oh yeah,
struggle.
yeah. Like that's the thing where I was like, like I've been working on that shed, but I haven't stepped foot in it because in Texas it's been so damn hot.
Yeah, of course.
So I've been just coming here, but here is like 45 miles away from my house. So the commute is what would like, bogs me down now, but it's great to be able to just come in here and just work and like, hash out ideas and stuff and learn about how to get different sounds and, how I tune my kit, certain ways, like it's a whole
Oh, you
big,
love
like,
to tune your kit.
there's the typo of social media pages. I don't know I don't know about the website. I haven't been to the website in so long. I don't know what's going on with it.
Yeah.
But usually, the usual like social media stuff. I'm
Right.
still from my age, I'm still on Facebook a lot,
For sure.
and I don't really go on Twitter too much. But apparently, it's
Neither
like
do I. I don't get it. I don't like it.
I'm not on TikTok or like, that to me
You're
is
more of a
silly.
Snapchat kind of guy
Yeah. Yeah, Snapchat.
with the whiskers and the yeah, that's you. That's all you.
Excellent.
Yeah, I'm going to be seeing you.
Tomorrow,
Yeah,
a few hours.
in Reno. Yeah, we're
Yeah.
playing Reno and we're playing Denver, and then we
Yeah.
do have a week and a half off, and then we'll be
Yes.
off again, and we're going to play the rest of the year. We have a bunch of gigs scheduled for next year,
Yeah, I
and
know. I think it's great.
yeah,
I really do. I mean,
well,
I genuinely love playing, and it's like, to be able to play, as much as we're playing, and to be able to do it with you guys is awesome.
well, and Rudy is so I mean, although we're chipping away at his positivity step by step. I mean,
He's getting a little. He's definitely saltier than when he
he's
came
getting
in.
definitely more salty. He's turning into an old salt.
Which is, I knew that we had potential to break him. I knew we could do it.
I will see you tomorrow,
All right.
and this will be up on YouTube whenever. And yeah, good chatting with
All
you,
right.
my son.